It is currently 5:07 Tuesday, February the 15th. The Champions League is back. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video on the channel. As some of you may know, I've already done my group stage predictions for this year's Champions League. So be sure to check that out before you watch this video to see which teams I've predicted to go into the round 16. Anyway, today we are going to be predicting the next round to see who will be going into the quarterfinal. Obviously, a lot of things have changed. We've had things such as the January transfer window. We've had a lot of teams gain and drop form. We've had a lot of players gain and drop form as well. So it is going to be one of the most interesting Champions Leagues in recent history. We're already starting off, I believe, today with a bang. I mean, Real Madrid against PSG, probably the best game in the entire Champions League campaign. So let's get to predicting the Champions League round of 16. Now, starting us off, it has to be the marquee game, Real Madrid against PSG. Probably the best clash we're going to be seeing in the Champions League this season. But for me, these are the probable lineups. I think Ancelotti will not change with that midfield three. I mean, who would? You can't go wrong with a midfield like that, who's been so consistent and effective for Real Madrid for so many years. In the attack, Vinicius and Benzema, two very on-form players, probably going to be supported by on-form as well, Marco Asensio. In the defense, Mendy and Militao, I think, will probably be the standout defenders for Real Madrid. They're having good seasons. Alaba and Carvajal are slightly weak spots, but Thibaut Courtois will probably be able to deal with PSG's very strong attack. And for how long, we'll have to wait and see. But PSG's lineup, let's get to that. Neymar, Messi and Mbappe for me are going to be starting. The first time we're going to really see them start in a big game like this. Neymar has recently just come back from injury, and I think Pochettino will probably want to get him in the team as quick as possible, even though he has been out for, I think it was 3 or 4 months. So yeah, we're going to have to wait and see if Neymar starts. Midfield, for me, PSG are going to be dominated because I just think player for player, they are way below Real Madrid's standard. However, Verratti for me is such an underrated player, and I think he'll be able to take on any of the players one-on-one with his incredible dribbling, his incredible ball control, and his aggression. Now, this is where it gets difficult for Real Madrid. The defense PSG has is genuinely stacked. Kimpembe, Marquinhos, Hakimi, and Nuno Mendes, for me, are all going to start, and it's going to be hell for Vinicius trying to get round any of these players. And just to make it worse, Donnarumma in goal, obviously the best goalkeeper in the world this season. Now, moving on, we go to the key players, and for me, Kylian Mbappe is going to be the player of the tie. He is just such a fantastic player, so explosive, so composed, and just way too good for his age. But I think he's gonna really turn this tie around. I think he's going to hold it with his talent, hold it with his skill. So we're just gonna see how long it takes for him to dominate the game and swoop Perez into signing him straight away in the summer. And then Vinicius, the player to watch for me, he hasn't really had that stage where he is the main man going into the game, but now is that time. He obviously played a fantastic game against Liverpool, I think 1 or 2 seasons ago, and it's going to be difficult for him to repeat that against a defense like this. Obviously that Liverpool side was very weak considering all the injuries they had, including the likes of Virgil van Dijk, but we're just going to have to wait and see how Vinicius does against a team like this. Now, the predictions. For me, the first leg is going to go to PSG. I think it's going to end 1-0 with a Kylian Mbappe goal. I just don't see PSG losing this game, especially with the French support. And Mbappe loves these big games, and he is the man for the occasion. Second leg for me, though, will go to Real Madrid. I believe it will end 2-1 with Benzema and Vinicius grabbing both of the goals. And obviously, that does send it to pens, knowing that UEFA have, I guess, scrapped the away goals rule, and now we just go straight into penalties or extra time if the aggregate is level. So for me, Real Madrid will defeat PSG on penalties. Controversial, but possible. Now, moving on, we go to Manchester City versus Sporting Lisbon. They're going to be playing in Portugal for the first leg alongside Real Madrid and PSG at the same time. And going into this round of 16 clash, I can only see one winner, and I think we all know who that is, but we'll go into that more as we progress into the predictions. But for me, these are going to be the probable lineups. I can't say that I know much about Sporting, but this lineup is more of, I guess, a conjuring of all their games that they've had in the last few match weeks. And then Manchester City is just the strongest team that they could possibly field, because we all know how hungry they are after losing that Champions League final a year ago to Chelsea, who we will get into in a second for their game against Lille. But anyway, going back to Man City, they're going to have so many gifted players like Sterling, Foden, Mahrez, De Bruyne. I mean, their team is just so fantastic. But one player who is actually my key player to watch is Bernardo Silva. This man is going to be the player of the tie. He has had such a brilliant season and is probably Manchester City's best player alongside João Cancelo. And Phil Foden, for me, has to be the player to watch. Will he step up in a big game? He hasn't really, I guess, folded into that Manchester City side where he is the main man just yet, but he definitely is capable to do so right now. I guess Sterling is more of that person Manchester City rely on, but I think Foden will one day take that simply. Now, going into the prediction for the first leg, I do think Manchester City will have no problem beating Sporting. I think they're going to win 3-0 with Mahrez, Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden on the score sheet. And then in the second leg, I think they are going to win 4-1 with Sterling getting a hat-trick, João Cancelo among the goals, and Paulinho getting one back for Sporting, which obviously leads to Manchester City being the eventual winner at a 7-1 aggregate against Sporting, knocking them out of the Champions League. Now, moving on, we go to a game that is probably the tightest matchup out of all of the teams in the round of 16 draw. Liverpool against Inter Milan. Fun fact, they've both actually had the exact same number of wins, draws and losses in their respective leagues this season. But these are going to be the probable lineups I'm going to go for. In defense, Inter usually uses 3-back because they have 3 fantastic centre-backs in Skriniar, De Vrij and Bastoni. And in the midfield, they have their 2 wing-backs in Perisic and Dumfries, and solid holding midfielders in Vidal and Brozovic, and a more attacking output in Çalhanoğlu. And in the attack, Martinez and Dzeko, 2 very world-class strikers. Dzeko slightly aging and getting to a point where he might not be able to compete at the top level, but this season he is proving otherwise. Next, we go to Liverpool's team, and not really many changes. I guess you could maybe make the case of Harvey Elliott starting, but I don't know if Klopp is ready to trust him at that young age. It still could happen, I wouldn't be surprised, but for me, that midfield 3 of Thiago, Fabinho and Keita is much more reliable. And in the attack, Salah, Mane and Jota. It's honestly just too solid of a team for Liverpool to lose this game with all the fantastic players they have. So these are the key players for me, in Salah being the player of the tie. As we all know, he is one of the best players in the world. He is scoring so many goals. He is putting so much creativity and effort in this season, and he's really maximized his playmaking craft. So for me, he's going to be the player of the tie, and the player to watch is going to be Virgil van Dijk. I'm not really sure if we've seen the exact same Virgil van Dijk, that really dominant Van Dijk that we've seen in the last couple seasons. This season, he's had his games, but hopefully in the Champions League, he'll be able to continue that and play some of his best football, which we know is very tough for any attacker to break down. Now, for the first leg, I'm going to be predicting a 2-0 win away for Liverpool with Salah and Fabinho on the score sheet. Salah, no need to explain, but Fabinho has been scoring a bunch of goals, so maybe that will continue. And in the second leg, I do believe that they will win 2-1 with Inter getting a goal but not being enough, hence Liverpool winning 4-1 on aggregate. Salah and Jota at the goals in Anfield, and then Dzeko getting that elusive goal in the end. So for me, Liverpool will go through to the quarterfinal. Next up, we have a game that is fairly one-sided on paper. I mean, player for player, when you look at Bayern's squad and you compare it to the Salzburg squad, it just is pure dominance from the Germans, and I do think that Bayern will end up taking the edge over this Salzburg squad. But when you really look at Salzburg's history and Bayern's current form, Bayern have conceded 5 goals in their last 2 games, which is obviously unlike themselves. And then you have Salzburg, who have never really pushed past the quarterfinals in the Champions League. I don't know their history, and I'm pretty sure they are a new club, but I don't think they've ever gotten this far in the Champions League. So for me, when it comes down to experience, I do think Bayern will end up winning. But when it comes to a probable lineup, I can only name Adeyemi. I'll be honest with you. I may pretend sometimes to know more about teams than I really do. However, when it comes to Salzburg, I can't lie and say that the only player I really do know about is Adeyemi. He's been linked to Liverpool several times, throughout his career, and they've never really got the deal over the line. They've obviously gone for players like Luis Diaz and Minamino because they had to opt for different players. He just can't get out that Salzburg squad. Maybe it is better for his development to stay there for a couple more years, but anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Bayern, player for player, they absolutely overpower Salzburg. However, that does not take away from Salzburg's reputation of giving these big teams in the Champions League trouble. We've seen it against Liverpool when Minamino and Haaland were obviously at the club. But anyway, the key players for me will be Thomas Muller and Adeyemi. I think Muller is probably going to be the best player in this tie. He's very underrated. He's a very smart player when it comes to positioning and decision making. And the player to watch for me will be Adeyemi. He hasn't really made his claim yet in the Champions League, even though he is the star man for Salzburg. So will he do it against Bayern? We'll have to wait and see. Now, when it comes to the prediction, I think in the first leg, Bayern Munich will win 2-1 away. I think it'll be a tough game, but I do think Kingsley Coman will score 2 goals, and I think Adeyemi will grab 1 at the end. And then for me, the second leg, I still think Bayern will win 2-1. I still think it's going to be a tough game, and I think Lewandowski will win the game for them with a brace, and then Adeyemi again scoring a goal, obviously meaning that Bayern Munich win on aggregate, knocking Salzburg out of the Champions League. Finally, we have made it to one of the most anticipated games of the entire round of 16 draw, Manchester United against Atletico Madrid. The first leg will be played in Spain, and we all know how good Ronaldo is against Atletico Madrid. Every single season Atleti have played in the Champions League against Cristiano Ronaldo, they have lost. The man simply loves to haunt them, and I think that it's going to be a recurring theme. Again, we'll get into that in a second. But when we look at the lineups, Atletico do have the more structured team, a very nice, I guess, tactical outlook with Simeone. Simeone, for me, is one of the most underrated coaches ever. He's had barely any resources, never really had any star players. Every player he's really had has become a star through his coaching, just like Jurgen Klopp. But anyway, the point is, their side is not to be, I guess, messed with. They are not a team that you can just look over and think that it's going to be a simple game, because their pressure is incredible, their fitness levels are incredible, and they are a very explosive team, especially on the counter-attack. Looking at Manchester United's team, I mean, we know how United have been this season. Very inconsistent, unfortunately. But with Cristiano Ronaldo up front in a game like this, I do think he will be the difference maker. The midfield is a bit of a question mark, but I do think Rangnick is going to go for this again, as he usually does. And then the defense, obviously, with Harry Maguire, he's not having the best of seasons, so we're going to have to see how he deals with players like Correa and Carrasco. Now, the key players for me, I think De Gea will be the player of the tie. He seems to always carry and save United almost every single game, and with Atleti's attack, I wouldn't be surprised if he had a lot of shots to face, which is why for me, he will be the best player of the 2 legs. And the player to watch for me has to be, obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo. I think he's going to score a couple of goals in this tie. We'll get into the predictions in a second, but for me, he again will be the difference maker. Now, the prediction. First leg for me will go through a 1-1 scoreline, and I think Ronaldo and Carrasco will be among the goals. And the second leg for me will end 1-1 again, with Ronaldo scoring a goal and Mario Hermoso getting one as well. Obviously meaning that it leads to pens. As I said before, the away goals rule has been scrapped. And for me, Manchester United will win on penalties. Quite a bold prediction, but if it works, it works. Now, moving on to a more under-the-radar clash. I don't think people realize how close this game actually is. You have Villarreal, who have actually been preventing a lot of the top teams in La Liga from taking points with them after recently drawing 0-0 with Real Madrid. And they have a lot of top players. I mean, players like Moreno, Danjuma, Parejo, Trigueros, a lot of fantastic players who are Champions League quality. But then you have Juventus, who are being very inconsistent this season and clearly proving that they are not the power horses they used to be. Now, with players like Vlahovic and Zakaria coming in, that does obviously bolster their squad and their chances of making it into the quarterfinal. But for me, these are going to be the lineups. I think that Juventus are going to try to field the best team possible as they try to push for a proper Champions League campaign that they didn't have really since Real Madrid beat them 4-1 in that final in 2017. Now, the key players for me will be Paulo Dybala and Dusan Vlahovic. I think the player of the tie will be Dybala. I think he's playing pretty well, and it's been a while since we've seen him start consistently. Every time he plays, he's just so talented. If only he wasn't so injury prone, I'm sure he wouldn't even be at Juventus right now. He'd probably be a top player at a bigger club. But anyway, the player of the tie for me will be Paulo Dybala, and I think the player to watch will be Vlahovic. How will he cope under the pressure of his first ever appearance in the Champions League? We'll have to wait and see. Now, on to the prediction. I predict in the first leg that Villarreal will actually win 2-1 in Spain. Gerard Moreno grabbing 2 goals and Morata with just the 1. And then I believe that second leg will end as a 1-1 stalemate with Dybala and Danjuma getting the goals. And obviously, without the away goals, without any tie, obviously the aggregate score is a 3-2 win to Villarreal, meaning that Juventus are going to end off with yet another disappointing campaign. But hey, that's just my prediction. Alright, so coming up towards the end, we have one game that is particularly less interesting to the other draws that we've had so far. Chelsea against Lille. The first leg will be played in England, and these are the probable lineups for me. I think Tuchel will still use Azpilicueta and Alonso. I don't think Reece James has been playing a lot of games recently. I think he's been injured. In defense, Rudiger and Thiago Silva, just 2 fantastic players this season. Kante, Jorginho, Mount and Ziyech, all creative. Kante being the more defensive and solid player, we all know how good he is. And in the attack, Lukaku and Havertz. Now for Lille, I can't say that I know too much about their team. However, I know that they have just signed Ben Arfa, which is a really interesting signing. We know how good he is on the ball. He's more of a street, won't forget player. But him, Renato Sanchez, obviously a really solid young player, has been really good this season as well. And Sven Botman, who was linked to a lot of teams this summer, but ended up staying at the club, will probably leave, I think, next season. But anyway, the key players for me will be N'Golo Kante being the player of the tie. I just think this is the perfect game for him to show what he can do. We've seen it several times in any game. Kante is just so dominant, no matter how big the game is. And then the player to watch for me will be Ben Arfa. It'll just be really interesting. I think this is his first time in the Champions League. I'm not sure if he will get to play, but he has already played a couple games for Lille. I've not heard many good or bad things. Just, I guess he's staying a bit under the radar, but we'll have to see. Maybe we could be seeing a crazy comeback for the Frenchman. Now, when we go to the prediction, I do think Chelsea will win the first leg in England 2-0 with Mason Mount and Azpilicueta getting the goals. And then in the second leg, I think that Lukaku will get the only goal in France, meaning obviously that Chelsea defeat Lille on a 3-0 aggregate, knocking them out of the Champions League. Finally, we have made it to the final game of the Champions League round of 16 predictions. Benfica against Ajax. On paper, not the most interesting. However, a lot of underrated quality in both sides. Players like Anthony, Haller, Gravenberch and Timber. I mean, so much young talent that Ajax have, something that they're obviously renowned for. Their academy is probably the best in terms of who they produce. I mean, De Jong, De Ligt, Cruyff, so many players. I can go on forever. Luis Suarez, obviously. And for the Benfica lineup, we have Rafa, Nunes, Grimaldo, Pizzi, and then you have a pretty old back line with Vertonghen and Otamendi, so it'll be very interesting to see how they cope with the explosivity of Ajax's team with Tadic and Antony on the wing. But anyway, the key players for me will be Haller and Antony. I think Haller will probably grab a goal and get a couple of assists, and I think Antony is going to be the most entertaining player to watch. I think he's going to really give Otamendi and Vertonghen a tough time on the wing. Now, the predictions, I think the first leg will end 2-1 to Ajax away in Portugal with a Tadic double and a Grimaldo goal. And then the second leg will end with a 2-0 scoreline, Haller getting 1, Gravenberch getting 1, giving Ajax a comfortable 4-1 aggregate score, sending them into the quarterfinal. Will they have a similar route to the Champions League semi-finals as they did in 2019? Obviously, that incredible run that they had before that Lucas Moura hat-trick, that miracle of a game. It was very heartbreaking for the Ajax players, and that was probably the last time we saw a team like that with Ajax's quality, with players like Ziyech, De Jong, as I mentioned earlier, De Ligt, as I mentioned earlier, all in one side, really pushing through and knocking out all the powerhouses like Juventus and Real Madrid. They just came up short in the end, but we'll have to wait and see how far they can really go in the Champions League this season. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, let me know your own predictions in the comments down below and who you think will win the Champions League. I think Real Madrid will go pretty far, but I do think the eventual winners will either be Manchester City or Bayern. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys again for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.